Okay, so we're preparing for a grade 2 exam, and these are the other things that you or your child has to know besides the 5 pieces and all of the technique. So all of the technique, I would have sent you the practice schedule, so they should be working now on the practice schedule, and I would have sent a video, and if not, then just ask me and I'll send that, on how to do the practice schedule for the technique. These are the other things. So the next thing is the oral tests. That's ear tests. So there are 3 possible ear tests, and you can help your child by doing these, testing them at home a few times a week. So the first thing is the examiner will play on the piano or tap a rhythm on the piano. And these are just examples of the level of difficulty. So he'll tap one rhythm like, and he will tap it a second time. And then the child will play it back. And that's worth 2 marks. 2 marks out of 100, so that's a lot. Number 2 in the ear test is the candidate will be asked to sing or recognize a 3rd or 5th degree of a major scale. So you can help your child by they will close their eyes, and you'll either play a 3rd, which in the key of C would be the 1st note and the 3rd note, or D would be the 1st note and the 3rd note, D to F sharp, or E to F sharp, or F to A. Play one of those 3rds. That's a 3rd. A 5th is the 1st and the 5th note of any scale. So it could be C to E, D to A, E to B, or F to C. So play one of those and ask them to identify, is it a 3rd or is it a 5th? A 3rd, a 5th. Okay? The 5th is very easy to recognize. Twinkle, twinkle. If they can sing twinkle, twinkle in their head to that, it's a 5th. I will be sending or I will have sent by now a little computer exercise from musictheory.com, and it will be identifying the 3rd and the 5th. And all you have to do is just click on the link that I send, and they practice that once every day until they're getting 10 right in a row. Okay, but just do 10 a day, or just do as many as they can in a day until they've gotten 10 right. And then eventually they'll be getting 10 right in a row, and they'll never miss it. So those are the 2 possible intervals, and that's worth 2 marks. The examiner will ask them too. The other thing is the candidate will be asked to recognize the higher or lower of 2 notes successively played twice by the examiner. So your child will be asked to close their eyes. The examiner will play 2 notes, any 2 notes, on the piano, and say to the child, which note is higher, the 1st note or the 2nd note? And obviously he should say the 2nd note is higher. Or he might say which note is lower, the 1st note or the 2nd note, and your child should be able to say the 1st note is lower. So identify which, and the examiner will play that twice. So if you can do that with your child a couple of times a week, that's a pretty easy one. They would have done it last year in the grade 1 exam. Okay, the level of sight reading. This is going to be very easy for your child if they are doing Sasser 2 or 3 times a week. This is definitely not hard. Okay, so that's the level of sight reading. The only thing is, it'll be in the key of C major, G major, or F major. That means it will be in C major, there will be no sharps and flats, or it will be in G major, which will be an F sharp marked here and here. So they have to look at the key signature and make sure, are they playing, is there an F sharp? Or if it's in F major, there could be a B flat, and that will be marked. So there'll either be 1 flat or 1 sharp or nothing. So just be careful to watch for the key signature before they play, and we'll do a couple of those in class as well. But that's the level of difficulty right there. All right, the other thing, this is worth 6% of the mark, the viva voce questions. So the child has to be able to define all of the signs. So what are the clefs, treble and bass clef? What is the key signature of the piece? What is the time signature? What are the accidentals? So sharps or flats, like what's a sharp, what's a flat, what's a natural? All the articulation markings, slur, phrase, staccato, accents, tempo markings, dynamic markings, and any musical terms in all of the pieces that they study for the grade 2 exam. If the pieces have special names like minuet or air or waltz, they have to know what those are. So if you can get together a list for your child of everything possible in all of their pieces, trills, ornaments, anything you know and even don't know. And I will fill that in with the proper definitions, and I will start asking them questions. And if the questions are not on their list, it's because I will be checking those pieces. If the questions are not on their list, I'll add that to the list. So maybe you can make up little flashcards, or you can quiz the kids a couple of times a week. Actually, the fastest way to learn those is to make a list and have your child read it out loud before bed. For example, P means piano. Piano means softly. FF is fortissimo. Fortissimo means very loudly. This is a treble clef. A treble clef is all the notes from middle C up, and so on. And just read it out loud before bed, and it will just kind of sink into their heads. So they need to know everything that's on their pieces. They also need to be able to name lines and spaces of the treble and bass clef, bass staves. So the stave is like the staff line. So that means they should be able to name any note on any line or any space. Be careful when note naming to check the key signature, because what if there are sharps and flats? And they have to make sure that they notice that first. So if there's a B flat in the key signature and the examiner points to a B, you have to be able to say, oh, that's a B flat. And even though there's no flat in front of it, because there will be one in the key signature. They have to be able to identify the values of whole notes and half notes, whole notes and whole rests, half notes, half rests, dotted half and dotted half notes and rests, quarter notes and quarter rests, dotted quarter, eighth, dotted eighth, and 16th. So I will have, if I haven't given you a sheet for that, I will give it to you. And just ask for it. Just send me an email and I'll make sure your child gets it. The last thing is they have to know which major key has 1, 2, or 3 sharps, or 1, 2, or 3 flats. So the major key I'll write that in their books, actually. I won't write this here, but I'll write that in their books if they don't know, and just have them memorize that. But there's an easy little trick. If you put your right hand on the piano and you put your thumb on C in 5-finger position, C major has 1 sharp. C major has no sharps. G major has 1 sharps. Then you go up 2 semitones. D major has 2 sharps. 2 semitones, A major has 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are major sharp keys. So if the examiner says, which major key has 3 sharps? 0, 1, 2, 3, A major. Which major key has 2 sharps? 0, 1, 2, D major. The opposite for flats. If you put your thumb on C and go in 5-finger position, which major key has 1 flat? 0, 1. F major has 1 flat. B flat major has 2 flats. E flat major has 3 flats. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And when you know the major ones, any minor one can be found by counting down 3. So what minor key with 3 sharps? 0, 1, 2, 3. A major, or 1, 2, 3, F sharp minor. Which minor key with 2 flats? 0, 1, 2. B flat major has 2 flats, but you want the minor, so you step down 1, 2, 3. G minor also has 2 flats. Okay, so G minor or B flat major are the keys with 2 flats. So I'll write this in their book, and if you have any questions about that, you go ahead and ask. And that's everything else that they need to know. The ear tests are worth 6% of their mark, and it's an easy 6%. The Viva Voce questions, they know most of this stuff. It's just to bring it to the front of their head, just to have those definitions ready for access. That's worth another 6%. And the sight reading is worth another 6% of their mark. So most of my kids can get a full 18 marks this way. Scales are worth 14 marks, so that's a lot, but the examiner will only ask to hear 5 or 6 scales. So it wouldn't hurt if you randomly asked your child every so often to play this scale or that scale or this arpeggio. Take a look at the list. And if you have any questions, or if you need any more information sheets, we will cover it in class, but they really need help at home preparing for this Viva Voce section. And if you can help with the ear training section, that's also huge.